In this lecture, we're going to upgrade our UI to be more responsive to, well, upgrades, as well as building spawns. Let's start in VS Code in the runtime UI. We saw in the previous lecture that we want to update the UI in a couple additional cases. One is when a building spawns, and one is when an upgrade is researched. We want to update the UI. So on awake, just like what we're doing for all these other events, let's do a bus of type building spawn event.onEvent for owner player 1 plus equals handle building spawn. Then a bus of type upgrade researched event.onEvent owner player 1 plus equals handle upgrade researched. Let's generate both of those. Before we worry about implementing, practice good hygiene, copy these event handler assignments, come down to destroy, paste them down here and change it to minus equal on both of those to unregister the handlers. Then let's cut these two generated functions and paste them down here with the other event handlers. Now, when an upgrade is researched, we probably want to refresh the entire UI because we will eventually want to show upgraded damage and armor and whatever else at the bottom when we have a unit selected. Refresh UI also updates the actions UI, so that's all that we need to do in here. Now, when a building spawns, it's a little bit more nuanced. We don't necessarily want to refresh the whole UI all the time with every building spawn because most of the time it doesn't do anything for us. So for now, let's do if selected units count equals 1 and selected units.first is a worker. In that case, we want to do actions UI.enable for the selected units. This will refresh the lock statuses and any actions if a worker is selected, which will allow us to see when we're in that building menu, hey, the barracks is done building. Now let's unlock that we can build the infantry school. And this gets us 90% of the way there. But there was still a problem that when we clicked to upgrade an upgrade, it would allow us to queue that one multiple times. And in the research upgrade command, we're going to need to upgrade what we do with isLocked to consider that the building should not already be building this upgrade if it's a one-time unlock. So let's convert this isLocked to a standard function and define bool isLocked to equal what we were returning before, and at the end return isLocked. Then let's check if not isLocked, because if it's already locked, we don't need to do anything else. We know it's locked. And the upgrade is a one-time unlock, and the context commandable is not null, and the context commandable is a base building. If all of that comes back as true, we can assign isLocked to building.queue.contains the upgrade. If it's a one-time unlock and we're already trying to upgrade this upgrade, we shouldn't let them do it again. There's one more piece left. On our actions UI, we will not refresh as often as we need to because we don't have an event raised today that we have started upgrading something. And that's exactly when we want to call this isLocked again. Immediately after we've started researching this upgrade, we want to call this isLocked again for that button and make it return true. So we can't queue it multiple times. Any thoughts on how we might be able to do that here in the actions UI? Well, in the building selected UI, we are listening on queue updated and doing some UI updates whenever the queue's been updated. We want to do something similar. It's a little bit more complex here in the actions UI because we're not getting just one base building. So how we're going to handle this is at the top, add a private hash set of base building, selected buildings, and initialize that right here. Then on enable for, we have somewhat of a challenge here because we need to be able to unsubscribe from any handlers that we assign. And we're not guaranteed to have disable called before enable for is called again. So the process we'd like to follow is to unsubscribe from all existing selected buildings, then find out which of the selected units are base buildings, and then subscribe to the onQueueUpdated for those. And in response to that, we would refresh the UI. And of course, on disable, we want to unsubscribe as well. Doing that process is this lecture's challenge. Unsubscribe from any onQueueUpdated in our selected buildings. Then find all the base buildings in the selected units and assign them to our selected buildings. Then subscribe to onQueueUpdated for each of the new buildings and refresh the UI when this happens. Finally, unsubscribe from all on disable. Pause the video. This one may take a little bit of time. Walk through this process and I'll see you back here once you're done. All right, welcome back. In enable for, we'll start with for each base building in selected buildings, building.onQueueUpdated minus equals onBuildingQueueUpdated. Let's generate that function, and we'll come back to that in just a minute. We've unassigned any handlers that may have been left over from the previous time. Then we want to do selected buildings equals selected units, where selected unit, that arrow, selected unit is a base building. And then we can safely cast all of those to a base building and convert that to a hash set with .toHashSet. That will give us some set that only has base buildings from our selected units. Then we can iterate over all of these for each base building in selected buildings, building.onQueueUpdated plus equals onBuildingQueueUpdated. On disable, we're going to want to do the unassignment. So let's copy this. For each where we're unassigning, come to disable and paste that, and then do selected buildings.clear. Now, in onBuildingQueueUpdated, we can just call refresh buttons with our selected buildings. But it's upset because we can't convert implicitly from a hash set of base building to a hash set of abstract commandables. So we can cast these just like what we did before, .cast to abstract commandables, and then do .toHashSet. Let's go ahead and move that onBuildingQueueUpdated just below disable. Something like this is what we were looking for in this challenge. I know it was a multi-part one that's reusing bits and pieces that we've learned throughout the course. So if you were able to do this one, I'm proud of you. Now let's come over to Unity and see it all in action. If we just click play, build that barracks, and if we select a worker and enter the build mode, we'll see that once the barracks completes building, that the infantry school button becomes enabled immediately because the dependency was met. Then we can build that infantry school, wait for that to come up. And now once we select that, research that infantry weapons 1, it immediately becomes disabled. We can't click on it anymore. Once it's done researching, it becomes enabled again with infantry weapons 2. If we build that, again, we can wait. It becomes enabled again, and we have weapons 3. Build that one, and once that's completed, we no longer see any commands available because we've exhausted all of the one-time unlocks. And those of you who are watching your console very closely will have noticed that when we start trying to research the second weapons, we get this error about purging couldn't be started because the game object building in progress container is inactive. And that's repeated and starts duplicating the more times that we do this upgrade. When we see something like this, we have a hint because we saw the first time there was 1, the second time there were 2. That indicates to us that we probably are not unsubscribing from events in the right way. On this error, we can see that it's building UI that's causing the error. If we open that up, it's our handle queue updated. So that tells us that we are indeed not correctly unsubscribing from a building. And we can see the cause of that is on enable 4. We are adding handlers without removing them. And much like what we just talked about on the actions UI, we're not guaranteed to have a disable called before enable 4. At the top then, we can do if building is not equal to null, building.onQueueUpdated minus equal handle queue updated. That'll make sure that we unsubscribe from any building that we had previously selected whenever enable 4 comes through. And if it happens to be the same one, we'll resubscribe on the same frame so we won't miss any updates. If we come back to Unity, we'll just save you a little bit of time and cut to right where the problem is. With a built infantry school, after we upgrade 1, now we upgrade the second one, we see we don't get that error anymore. Now we can build all 3 of these and see no error. So in this lecture, we've made the UI much more responsive by responding to key events that ensure that the player cannot make a mistake and can do things immediately without having to reselect units and buildings. When you're ready, I'll see you on the next one.